Tonight I'm gonna show you something. Make you believe.
Hey there, welcome to 80s Vault. This is Dan, and today I'm talking about a time before CGI jump scares and found footage films. I mean, this is the golden age of the scream queens is what we're talking about. Those actresses who turned running from mass killers into an art form. Today, I'm going to count down my personal 10 most iconic scream queens of the 80s. I'm talking about when final girls were final and practical effects were practical. And somehow, just everyone looked amazing while being chased by serial killers. Who do you think my number one's going to be? All right, before we get started, let's talk about how we got here. So, before the 1980s, women in horror, basically they were just professional fainters, right? But then Jamie Lee Curtis said, "Hold my knife," and that just changed everything. Suddenly, our scream queens weren't just screaming, they were fighting back, outsmarting the killers, and somehow finding time for, perfect hair maintenance and stuff, right? So starting us off is the queen of suburban horror herself. While other scream queens were running from the mass killers in those summer camps, Dee was just making the American dream absolutely terrifying. In The Howling, she turns a self-help retreat into a werewolf massacre. And man, when she went on live television at the end, anyways, then she was in Cujo, and she makes being trapped in a Pinto with a rabid St. Bernard more intense than most of the 80s slasher films altogether. What made Dee special, it wasn't just her scream. It was how she brought this vulnerable authenticity to every single role. She wasn't playing some teenager running from danger. She was playing a real woman dealing with supernatural chaos. Between fighting werewolves and rabid dogs, she somehow found time to be Elliot's mom in E.T. Proving, she could handle any genre thrown at her. Though, let's be honest, E.T. probably prepared her for horror better than any other movie.
Hold on, sweetheart. I want to check this out.
Dan, stay on the phone!
Before The Fog, nobody really thought a radio DJ in a lighthouse could be the center of a horror film. But, Barbeau made it work. She brought this sophisticated gravitas to horror that made even the craziest premises just seem believable. Ghost pirates show up in The Fog. Yeah, why not? Fall in love with a man who turns into a plant? Sure, totally reasonable when Barbeau sells it. She had this unique ability to just class up any B movie she was in. And don't forget, just call her Billy, all her friends do.
Hi. You gave me a seat in the class.
No. No. Yes.
Going from Reanimator to Chop and Maul, Crampton was basically just getting her PhD in horror. Reanimator, she was dealing with mad science and zombies while trying to maintain her dignity. That's not easy when the movie involves a severed head doing, wait, I gotta keep this family friendly. So let's move on to the Chop and Maul, where she's fighting killer robots in the shopping mall. But what made her special was that she just brought this intelligent presence to horror. She wasn't just running and screaming. She was giving genuine performances while surrounded by killer robots and mad scientists. I give that. Plus, she just managed to keep her hair perfect through every horror scenario. That's not just talent. That's a superpower.
This is a way of life.
Oh, yes.
The punk rock princess of horror herself. Return of the Living Dead gave us the most memorable cemetery striptease in history. And yes, that's apparently a category, by the way. But Quigley wasn't just about shock value. She just brought raw energy to every role. Night of the Demons, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Savage Streets. I mean, she just turned a B movie into a special type of art form.
Stop looking at me.
All right, so we're going to talk about, Felissa Rose and Sleepaway Camp. She's the one, in that scene, and if you don't know, I'm not spoiling it. So Rose took what could have been, just another summer camp slasher, and she turned into something, so unforgettable. I mean, she just brought this eerie innocence to Angela that made the whole movie more disturbing than any amount of gore could have.
Special day girl, say hip hip hooray girl, you've made it to Salem, you'll scream at the Witch Museum.
For number 5, I'm gonna go with the Mistress of Dark herself. Horror's greatest hostess and proof that you could be both scary and sexy while telling terrible puns. I mean, sure, she wasn't running from mass killers or fighting zombies, but Elvira just did something even more important. She made horror fun. I mean, like every Saturday night, she introduced like the best B movies with enough wit and cleavage to make like even Plan 9 from Outer Space watchable. I mean, what made Elvira special? It just wasn't just her iconic look. Although the black dress probably launched 1,000 goth careers, it was Peterson's like perfect comic timing and like self-aware humor. She'd introduce like the worst horror movies ever made, right? Like this delicious mix of like snark and celebration. And if we're being honest here, without Elvira, I mean, half of us probably wouldn't have even discovered most of those amazing B movies in the 80s. I mean, she was just like your cool goth aunt who had the best VHS collection, and she wasn't afraid to show you the weird stuff.
Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and call myself a king of infinite space. Were it not that I have bad.
So Nancy Thompson wasn't just fighting Freddy Krueger. She was fighting the rules for Final Girls. I mean, the Nightmare on Elm Street, she gave us this hero who didn't just run from the villain. I mean, she set traps, like turn it into like a new episode of Home Alone with deadlier consequences. I mean, what made Heather legendary wasn't her scream, it was how Nancy made everything feel real. I mean, this wasn't the perfect little final girl. I mean, this was a teenager dealing with a dream-invading killer who also trying to pass school at the same time. So number 3, we've got like the original Friday the 13th final girl. As, Alice Hardy, she didn't just survive Camp Crystal Lake. I mean, she wrote the rule book for surviving slasher movies. Before anyone knew what a final girl was, King was out there like decapitating Miss Voorhees and just dramatizing a generation of summer camp counselors.
The box. You opened it. We came.
Ashley Laurence was, she's the empress of supernatural horror. As Kirsty Cotton in Hellraiser, she took on like interdimensional demons with puzzle boxes and pure attitude. I mean, everyone else is just having to deal with guys in masks. She's facing down Pinhead and like his leather-clad Cenobites like it was just another day at the Adam and Eve shop off the 95 or something. I mean, she makes the impossible feel just, painfully real.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
I mean, my ultimate final girl, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, she's the Scream Queen to end all Scream Queens. I mean, Halloween gave us Laurie Strode, and horror movies it'd never be the same, man. And here's the thing. Curtis didn't just stop there. I mean, she got The Fog, Prom Night, Terror Train, Road Games. I mean, she basically collected slasher movies like they were Pokemon. I mean, what made Jamie Lee the GOAT, it just wasn't just her scream. And let's be honest, it was magnificent. It's how she brought this perfect mix of vulnerability and strength to every role. Laurie Strode wasn't just running from Michael Myers. I mean, she was like fighting back with like whatever she had. Like there were coat hangers or knitting needles. I mean, she just had pure determination. She made the final girl feel real and gritty, you know? Well, you know, I really appreciate those who made it all the way to this point, you know, so thank you. That was my queens of screams, you know, who made the 80s just a golden age of horror. These women, I mean, they weren't just victims, and they were survivors who shaped how we see horror movies today. I mean, they prove that sometimes the most terrifying situations can create the strongest heroes. Though having really good hair, I mean, that always helps, you know. So just, you know, make sure you drop me some comments telling me, like, you know, who your favorite Scream Queen moment was, or, you know, like which girl would you want to have on your team during a zombie apocalypse, you know. So anyways, this is Dan, reminding you that in the 80s, the real heroes wore their terror on their sleeves and their hair extra high. Stay radical and just keep checking the back seats, people.